Countdown, bro.
Yeah, that's how I count down. We are live, ladies and gentlemen.
We're back.
And children of 18 and plus, because we don't do kids content.
Yes, exactly. And especially not tonight. Could get interesting.
The marks are notoriously late. Are you kidding me?
We have to let the viewers build up.
Damn, already.
Of course. So far, we want Shannon casting. So far, our zeros on my side are showing 0. Our zeros, our viewers are showing 0 on my side. So, but obviously that's not completely accurate.
Yeah, remember that 40-second delay for the most part. I think it's going to kick in here in a couple seconds.
It's been 40 seconds. Oh, no.
Okay, I guess we still have 0, even though there's clearly people in the chat. There it jumped. Okay. 18.
There, all right. Woo.
All right, now so tonight we have a lot of topics, a lot of things to discuss, a lot of news going on. And we thought we would have a special guest for this one. We might have multiple guests on this one, depending on how it goes. We'll see. But we have a very special guest for anybody that's been listening to us for quite a long time.
The OG listeners, if you will. Yes. And no, it's not Ray Porter, unfortunately.
Everybody's doing that one. No, we don't do that. We get someone better than Ray.
Yeah, exactly.
We get someone better than Darkseid. We're going to bring aboard our friend Nick. Now, anybody that doesn't know, Nick is our friend that was on our very old podcast. Actually, I'm pretty sure the last podcast we did with him was the original theatrical cut of Justice League.
Yeah.
So we're bringing him back on to talk about the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League. So here we go. Nick, I am adding you to the stream. Bam.
Hello. Boom. There he is.
I had to get a nice setup behind me of like.
Yeah, I like it. That's sweet.
Oh, damn, you're more professional than us. Fuck.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I just have some random motivational things behind me. It's fine.
But honestly, I've been doing work from home for the last 2 months, so I'm used to just sitting in front of the camera and having just try to make it look somewhat presentable. So
nice. That's fantastic. Yeah, as Matt mentioned, Nick is one of our longtime friends. I think I've known Nick for 13, 14 years now. And he is the Marvel fanboy. I think someone asked, Bam, is this the Marvel fan you talk about, MCU fan you talk about? Yes, he is. So he is incredibly knowledgeable, specifically in the Marvel side of things. So anytime I have a question that has to do with Marvel, I go to Nick every single time, and he brings a different perspective. I hope that he doesn't throw out the rating of 1 on here at any time, but
that's not terrible. That's all.
I was going to bring that up myself, actually.
Yes.
To clarify with anybody, yes, Nick. All the comments that we get on our old post that basically say "fuck Nick," for the most part. Just everybody, I just ask everybody to be somewhat respectful in the comments, depending on what he says. Yes. We don't know actually what he's going to say. We have barely at all talked about this at all. There we go. Boo this man.
I'm a therapist. I'm used to being called a lot worse than that. So that's
I was about to say, if anybody can do this, I'm pretty sure Nick can.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. He deals with a lot on a daily basis. So fortunately, he is.
Here we go. Yeah, Marcus D. Thor Ragnarok gang, where you at? So yeah, Marcus likes to troll me about Ragnarok. If I remember right. Oh, yeah, see, there you go. There you go, Marcus. So now you got a guy you can talk about Taika Waititi and all that other bullshit.
We could just read the comments. We just gave you an introduction, and we're a couple minutes in, and everyone's like.
So, anyway, like I said before, last time we actually talked to Nick on the show was our review of Justice League, and even I don't know if Nick remembers this, but I do for the most part. Even Nick said he didn't understand why DC just didn't keep doing what they were doing already. Why did they do such a turn? Now, that's what you said at the time, Nick. By chance, have you watched the theatrical cut of Justice League since that time?
Nope, I have not.
Okay.
Truth be told, I have had no interest in even rewatching it. So I have perspectives on the Snyder Cut, but we'll get there.
Yeah, let's not jump into it yet. We have to tease it a little bit. But yeah, so Matt and I have watched Justice League together the first go round, and then I believe the second go around we went with Nick to watch it in theater. and it was surprising. And even he was like, I don't know.
Yeah, even the second time around, Nick and I actually did have a good time sitting next to each other laughing at some of the stupid shit in it. I remember that. When Batman gets chucked across the screen.
Okay,
that is Superman. I remember Nick and I started busting up laughing because it was just so bad. It was just they just shit all over him in that moment.
We're getting a lot of people jumping in. This Marcus D again. We got Real Emotion is in the house.
I get a lot for Jason. Oh, that must be Mr. Ben Everest himself. So anyway, so this is kind of an interesting moment. Last time we talked to Nick was Justice League, and guess what? Well, now Zack Snyder's Justice League has been officially announced to be on HBO Max in possible different forms. I don't know if you know this, Nick, but it could be possibly a 4-hour director's cut.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be broke up into 6 episodic episodes, kind of like a serial comic, like a comic series. Yeah. So and it could have cliffhangers at the end and everything like that. And in likelihood, that probably is the way it's going to go, is into an episodic thing, because they're going to want to drag this bad boy out to get more subscriptions and stuff like that.
Aren't they spending like $30 million on it or something like that? Like there's a good investment.
That is the quoted price as of the Hollywood Reporter, which is kind of the fluff piece to all this for the most part. Not to go too crazy on it, but there's a likelihood that it might be a lot more because, again, if they're doing a 4-hour director's cut and he's going to do additional photography for the most part, it could cost a little bit more to get it all. So, but they were already planning to do this stuff with HBO Max, that they were already going to spend like $60 to $80 million on movies in general, kind of like how Netflix does. How they spend a good chunk of change on original content, and HBO Max was going to do the same thing. So in this case, they actually have a Justice League movie, don't need about that much money to finish, and it's got stars like Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill and a lot of other people. It's got Superman, Batman, and all those things. So I don't know how much So how much, Nick, have you been at all? I doubt. I'm not going to assume. So how much at all, if anything, do you know at all about the Snyder Cut from last time we've ever talked?
I just the very basics. From what I've understood, it was that, like, I know that Zack had to leave the project because of the death of his son and
daughter.
His daughter. Okay, my child.
There you go.
Yeah, and
we don't assume genders on this show, Nick, by the way.
That's all right. It was Joss Whedon who came in and finished it, right? He was...
Yes.
Yeah, so Joss Whedon came in, finished the story, kind of sounded like there was a bunch of changes that happened when he came in to kind of change it and fluff it up a bit. And then I know there was a lot of people, myself included, who were not happy with the finished product per se. And then there was this kind of the idea that, like, there was this cut that Zack Snyder had kind of worked on and was working on before he had to leave, and that was what, from what I understand, you guys were kind of trying to promote. Like, you wanted to see his perspective. You wanted to see, like, if he had the time and the money and the ability to do it without obviously this horrible tragedy that he experienced, what would he have created?
Right.
And so I know a lot of, from what I understand, the push for the Snyder Cut was kind of trying to get that version out. Of giving his version out. I'm not sure it ever existed in the first place since he had to leave so early, but that's a whole other conversation.
I actually wanted to ask you because we recently took a trip. For those of you who don't know, I mentioned that I went to Disneyland a couple months ago, and Nick and his wife had joined my family in the Disneyland trip, and we had talked about it a little bit. I believe I wore my Zack Snyder Justice League, or one of my shirts, to Disneyland, just kind of in like a trolling manner. And so Nick and I had briefly talked about it. We at breakfast one day, we were talking a little bit about it. So my question was, what was your initial reaction just a couple months later? This was back in March when we went, and, here we are at the end of May when it's finally announced. What was your initial reaction? Were you like, "Oh crap, I was wrong," or when
it got announced?
Yeah, when you heard that, okay, there is one, because it seemed like when we had talked about it that you were like, "Nah, there's there's really no chance that much of it exists, and they'd have to pretty much redo the entire movie.
Right. First, I have to say that the first thing when I saw that it was being announced, and I'm actually glad you guys reached out to me, because I literally was going to text both of you guys and be like, "Oh my God, did you guys hear the Snyder Cut's going to come out?" Right. So I had to kind of laugh at that. Don't
worry, Mike did that already. And I'm like, dude, seriously, why are you right? Did you know Ray Porter was Darkseid? I'm like, dude, get out of here. All right, man.
I thought he was trolling us. I really thought Mike was trolling us at first. I'm like, come on. You know how deep in the weeds we are, especially Matt. Like how deep in the weeds we are of all this stuff.
Mike, by the way, is another friend of ours, so just a mutual friend amongst everybody here.
Listen to a wrestling podcast from back in the day.
There you go.
No, but when I saw that it was being announced, I'm interested. Like, truth be told, like, kind of Matt, what you kind of mentioned when even just mentioning the original Justice League podcast that we did, that I made the comment of I wish that he had been able to finish it, so at least he had created some kind of vision going forward. And so I'm kind of interested to see what he can do. To kind of just put it out there, I have no ill will towards DC. I love DC, genuinely. Like, I want them to do nothing but great things. And I hope that they're able to do something good with this. I think that this could be an interesting opportunity for him to be able to make up maybe the lost time he had, or even like a different perspective on the DC universe, from maybe even where he was, what was that, 2 years ago? You know, two or 3 years ago? I'm trying to think when Justice League came out.
3 years ago.
Yeah, almost
coming up 2.5.
Yeah.
But he left 3 years ago this month.
Yeah.
So from the project.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm definitely at the very least interested. Optimistic, that's a whole nother conversation, but you know, I will always give anything the benefit of the doubt. Like, if I love superheroes, I love these stuff, and if they can make it good, then I would commit to it. So
# 1 out of 5 for Batman vs Superman.
That's only
I'll give anything the benefit of the doubt, huh?
It's only I did before I saw the movie.
So
I actually thought this through. You're wearing your Batman Superman hat. Like, I was this close to wearing a Marvel shirt today. I'm like, no.
You were going to. I really thought you were going to. I was like, watch, he's going to show up with like Captain America or something.
I was this close, and I'm like, no. I need something a little bit more just general. So
yeah, I dig the. Yeah,
we got Chip and Dale. So
yeah.
So I wasn't sure how much you actually knew, so I kind of put some pictures together here, and I'm just curious what you think. So I'm gonna bring them up here on the screen. So in Zack Snyder's Justice League, Cavill's gonna be in the black suit. He's not gonna be in the traditional red and blue and yellow. He's gonna, in the scout ship, he's actually gonna get a black suit. So I'm just curious, what do you think of that?
I mean, that's the suit he had after Death of Superman, so I mean, it fits. You know.
Okay. Like, he's gonna have a cape. That's kind of odd, but other than that,
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't have a mullet or a beard though, so
or a giant gun that, like, you know. Right. And I would actually be so happy if they did that, like, genuinely.
So another thing is, I was curious about if you knew about this at all, about how Steppenwolf actually dies in Zack Snyder's version. Spoilers, by the way, for all this, guys, because we're going to be breaking a lot of this stuff down, and also some speculation. Now that the movie's actually coming out, we have to actually probably give like a spoiler warning and shit for some of this stuff for people that may have not paid attention for the most part. But here it is. But in his version and Snyder's version, he put not sure how they kill Steppenwolf. In the theatrical version of JL, this was never finished all the way, but I use gods to kill gods. And what he has there is a previs shot of Wonder Woman slicing Steppenwolf's head off. So it's a very, very low res. It's a previs shot. It's basically the work they do before they actually even start filming. So it's just a filler spot right now. But what it is what happens is that, let me go back to here. Let me click through some of these pictures. Oh, there we go. So Aquaman there stabs Steppenwolf, and you see Wonder Woman in the back there, and that's a boom tube right there in the background. And basically, what from what Snyder says is that after he gets shanked there, Superman punches him across the zone there, and that's when you see him flying, and Wonder Woman jumps up and slices his head off. Brutal. Sound good to you?
Hey, that's not the first person she would have killed. So,
yeah.
And then a nice little touch here is that basically falling into the boom tube, and the severed head rolls to Darkseid's feet. So that boom tube has Darkseid in it, and he's actually described it as the family is behind that boom tube. So I'm just kind of curious, how do you think of that as like the ending? Well, it's not necessarily the ending, but the big climactic battle to show Darkseid through a boom tube with the family, and then Steppenwolf's head underneath Darkseid's feet.
I mean, that sounds fun. I'm down with seeing. I'm down with seeing Darkseid if they can do him right.
Well, is it better than Fear and him getting sucked up in the boom tube? Does that sound better for the most part?
I don't even remember. I don't remember. I was.
So, and then I guess another big change would be is that Harry Lennox, the guy that played Swanwick, the Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm.
He is actually going to be playing Martian Manhunter. Did you know that by chance?
That would be interesting.
So he'll be playing Martian Manhunter. But in this actual little piece right here, what that is that it's Lois and Martha talking, and when Martha leaves, he transforms into Martian Manhunter, and then the bottom right panel there is Harry Lennox. So that's kind of like a morphing thing. So yeah, Martian Manhunter is in this one as well. So that's another little perk to all this. So that's why this thing is like kind of epic, and why it would be 4 hours or possibly 6 episodes, because you're talking a bunch of different things, a bunch of things that are going to expand this universe for the most part. And I was just kind of curious what you thought of some of that stuff, or even the I guess in the history battle there would be a young Darkseid, which a lot of people are not quite catching on to yet. There we go, there he is. So I don't know if you remember the history lesson, but it actually had Steppenwolf like gods like Ares and Zeus and the old Atlanteans and Amazonians. Well, actually, originally in Snyder's version, it was a young Darkseid, a very young Darkseid, and he's the one stomping them out and stuff like that. But he loses, and I keep seeing a lot of people saying that, oh, we need to get a real Darkseid. That looks like a puny Darkseid, but everybody keeps missing the fact that he's a very young Darkseid. I guess his traditional comic name is Uxas or whatever. For the most part, this is before he ever even becomes Darkseid or has the Omega beams or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I will say like that scene in the movie is one of the scenes I do actually like, because it's just a ton of Easter eggs just for fun. So I don't see that necessarily being a problem. I think that would be something interesting to throw in there, just little hint at Darkseid potentially coming into the DCEU.
Initially we had everything worked out the way it was supposed to. We would have essentially gotten Thanos and Darkseid in the same year. And it would have been it would have been too just insane. And it's unfortunate the way that everything went down. But that's ultimately some of the stuff that Matt was just showing you. That's what kept, the dangling the carrot, I guess, so to speak, in front of people who really wanted to see this version of the movie, and knowing that there was at least some stuff that had developed enough. And I saw someone in the comments a little bit earlier talking about if it existed or if it didn't exist. It was just, just play on words, essentially. It was how much was exactly finished. And those are some of the things. That's why we pushed so hard for this version, because it was so different. And you saw the theatrical version, and even you were like, maybe they should just let him finish it. Despite what you felt about Man of Steel and Batman v Superman.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly would say that, at the very least, I think it's neat that he gets an opportunity to finish something that he didn't get to do. My favorite Spider-Man.
I'll have to explain this to you here in a moment. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, clearly the answer is Turkish Spider-Man. So.
Oh, there we go. So the event, I'll just explain what that is supposed to be making fun of. There was an event that Shane and I went to last year in Pasadena, California, and Snyder was doing all of his director's cuts. Mm-hmm. And it was a very prominent time to ask him a lot of questions about this stuff, and no one did. And it was very annoying, very obnoxious. And
Matt literally at this event there's audio of him, and I think we've told you about this before, possibly, but there's audio of him going, "Release the Snyder Cut." Fuck! But he yells it like in the thing, because no one's answering the questions. It's incredibly, or asking the question that everyone wanted to hear. It's incredibly difficult to get your question answered.
Mm-hmm.
No, Shane stroke.
Oh no!
This is a normal thing. He usually strokes for the most part on the show. It's the kid.
they have medication for that. I think we have to really take care of him. I mean,
and then one guy gets the opportunity.
Oh, you back?
There you go. He's blinking.
Damn kids suck at draining all my internet with their Fortnite. Anyways, so one guy gets the opportunity. You can go ahead and finish the story, Matt.
Okay. Anyway, so finally, this guy, he does this whole thing where he leads up during the Batman versus Superman Ultimate Edition questionnaire. So there's got a lot of people from the cast. Snyder sitting up there, and he says, I got one of the biggest questions possible from the Twitter, something that everybody's wanted to know for a long time. It's the biggest question on Twitter. And then he looks at Snyder, what's your favorite Spider-Man?
That's funny.
And that was pretty much boo this man. And as the rumor is, he got
he set it up and everything. And
yeah. The rumor is people found out who he was and he got ran off Twitter because they were like, you had the opportunity, you trolled everyone, you jackass, and that's what you asked.
And I don't think you care, but it was Toby. It was his favorite. He answered it.
I'd probably side with that if I'm being honest.
There you go. Nick agrees with Zack Snyder.
Yeah, right? Boom.
The first time ever. No.
I wanted to go to this question real quick because it's probably important.
No.
Winter Soldier. Probably Black Panther and the original Avengers. Probably my 1, 2, 3.
Three pretty different movies. So I just wanted to show that because it is important in terms of so people can get an idea of what Nick does look for in a movie and why he gave Batman vs Superman a 1 out of 5.
Yeah, that makes a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, no Ragnarok.
It's good. It's not my top 3 though.
Oh darn. That's a damn fucking shame. I hate that goddamn movie. Anyway, so I was just kind of curious, what do you think also, now that the Snyder Cut is being released for the most part, what do you think about possibly the original Suicide Squad being released? Because I don't know how well you know, but that was also tampered with as well. That was actually edited by a trailer company because
I heard
that trailer company that did the Bohemian Rhapsody version, that trailer was so popular that they actually, WB's like, well, we just might as well let them edit the movie now. So that's kind of how that came about. And David Ayer, the director, has been on Twitter, and for the last couple of years has been pretty complacent with it for the most part. He's not really been outspoken about it at all like Snyder. But recently, now that he's seen what's going on, he's been really pushing that he would like his original version now to be seen, and like calling it the Ayer Cut for the most part. How much do you actually even care about Suicide Squad?
I don't, honestly. I really don't. Like, there were a couple interesting moments in Suicide Squad, but that was, that another one that I just think just kind of falls into the radar of like, all right, that was just kind of a mess. I do think it's interesting to see movies being made and kind of re-edited and director's cuts, extended editions. Like, I do think those are interesting. Lord of the Rings is my favorite movie, always will be. And, I think that's like the gold standard of extended cuts kind of stuff. And so I'm cool with like, let's add things, let's change things, let's mix things up. I guess my only concern is kind of like this revisionist, like, let's like change the way things, I don't know how I want to word this. Like I really like we'll just say like with Suicide Squad, like I have no interest in revisiting that. And I think that's the thing. It's like I'm interested in revisiting things that maybe I had a lot of interest in the first place. And so I guess like that's kind of my concern a little bit with Justice League, is that like, does it have enough, I guess, really to pull me back in to watch it again? Because the first one was just, like I said, really was, I think probably when I think we did the review on it, I think I gave it like a B-, C-, which is kind of like a like it was like I didn't hate it, but it did like almost nothing for me. And so like I think that's kind of, I guess, my concern with a lot of this is that, is it better resources to create something new that can be interesting, well done, positive, have a better idea, or are we going back and band-aiding old films that maybe we need to just kind of let go to pasture and just kind of try and do something better next time? Like it's funny, you guys were talking about the Spider-Man movies. I have no interest in watching a redone director's cut Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. Like, I have no interest in that at all. And if they did do like a director's cut, I would be like, that's nice, and I would never see it. And so like
that's a fair point. I think so where we're at and where DC unfortunately went awry, starting with Suicide Squad, and well, I mean, even releasing the theatrical version of BVS and then Suicide Squad, and why people are like us want to see those versions so much is they're not just a slightly different, you know, you mentioned a director's cut of like a extended version, if you will, of like Lord of the Rings. Well, in these, they are not even that. They are drastically different. Yeah. And there's so much that where it's almost a completely different movie where it will be unrecognizable. And that's where we wanted to see more of like, okay, we had this entire just disaster specifically with Justice League. And it wasn't anything that we wanted to see. And, you know, had the one-liners and just corniness written all over it and a crappy mustache face Superman that no one wants to see. And so now we're at the point where it's not really a Band-Aid. We're going under the knife. This is like full on, you know, surgery, plastic surgery, if you will. And just they're completely different movies. And so that's where we're like, we at least want to see number one for Zack Snyder, his version actually come to fruition. And at least kind of close that loop a little bit. And David Ayer's version did play a large part, we're coming to find out, in Snyder's kind of universe as well, because they established boom tubes and Steppenwolf and things like that. So that it actually plays into that. And it seems like, and this is the frustrating part from DC fans, is that those would have meshed so well together, similar to, I guess, how the MCU, but only better. They would have meshed well together, and we could have at least kind of moved forward with a better universe. But now it's just this hodgepodge of nonsense that, we're kind of like, even Birds of Prey, which I know you didn't see, was only very, very loosely linked to Suicide Squad. So it's just, that's where, as Snyder fans and fans of the version that he started establishing, that we want to see at least close some sort of loop if they don't continue with what his version was in the first place.
Yeah, that's one thing I think is kind of big right now for at least DC fans or DCEU fans, which now actually they officially titled that in HBO Max. It is actually officially titled now the DC Extended Universe in HBO Max. So it's kind of a thing where it's like we're still getting these new movies. We're still getting Wonder Woman 1984, The Suicide Squad by James Gunn. We're still the Flash movie, whatever happens with Ezra Miller and the Flash, and Aquaman 2. It's still moving forward, but on HBO, it's like they got this nice Elseworld possibilities that they have over there, where they can kind of fix some of that mess that it was from basically 2016 and on from that point. And the Snyder Cut, for the most part, is kind of like this, almost this genesis, this reinvigoration to the whole thing, because now it looks like Henry Cavill may be able to don the cape again. He may be able to come back as Superman because of this. It's all setting up a bigger universe, at least on HBO Max, and continuing with those characters that a lot of people do like. So I kind of feel like it's a boost. It's kind of like we're back. It is kind of like we're back where we started a little bit, but hopefully this time those same mistakes won't be made again.
Yeah, I guess I really do hope that whatever decisions they choose to make in this new Justice League, that it's entertaining and that it's fun and that it's exciting and dramatic, and like I want a variety of things. I think that's fantastic. I think kind of going back to like one of my original points though is like I don't even know if they have enough in that kind of that they have established that would bring me back. Just because because I think it's funny you were talking about like bringing back Henry Cavill and stuff like that, and I'm like, so I'm in the process of watching The Witcher, which I am very much enjoying.
Okay,
yeah, I like high fantasy. It's fun stuff. Okay, if Henry Cavill was like that in Superman and was like that in Justice League, I'd be much more interested, because I feel like he didn't have a lot of wiggle room. And I feel like that is what kind of you need with these characters, is you need them to be able to be fleshed out and have their own kind of, I guess like character, like in those basic sense. Whereas I just feel like they kind of, and I think this is kind of just hard in general with DC, is because that's very different from like Marvel. And I know I keep bringing this up, but it's kind of good parallel. You know, Iron Man didn't have a lot of like history. Like he had obviously comic book history and a couple cartoons, but he never was like super well known. So when his first movie came out, they kind of just go hog wild with him and introduce him fresh. Whereas like, I'm sorry, like Superman has had what, 6 movies now? Batman has had 6. Wonder Woman had her TV show. I mean, like the main 3 have had a great deal of exposure, and so I think it's hard. What's that?
All the animated stuff too, Justice League.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, even like a lot of the Marvel animated stuff didn't really kind of sucks. DC is way better than animated, anyways. But like there just wasn't. I think there's not a lot of history with that stuff that I think is actually kind of freeing. Whereas I think that the DC universe has this kind of like difficult, like they're kind of fighting history a little bit, like not just that they're fighting like trying to make something interesting and cool for the time being, but they're also like, I'm sorry, like how it's so hard to like not fight against Christopher Reeve. It's so hard to not fight against Michael Keaton. It's so hard to fight against Linda Carter. Like it's just like, even though they were totally different characters, it's just so many people I think have these visions of what they should be, and I think that's what like Zack Snyder's kind of fighting against. You know, right. like that. When we talked about Batman and Superman, I'm that guy. Okay, I'm the person who says, you know, Superman, why did he kill Zod? Like that seems just totally like out of character. Just like I don't see why or I have Man of Steel or Batman and Superman, where Batman is like literally like killing people, though that fight scene is really cool, I will say, where he's in the warehouse, where he's beating up all the thugs, and it looks like it's from like Arkham City or Arkham Asylum or something like that. And I'm like, that looks like fun. But it just, I think because there's so much history there that I'm actually worried about just DC going forward. I think that a lot of what DC could do well, and this kind of goes back to this idea I have of like, why not just maybe start fresh, is they have this mountain of characters, this mountain of storylines, this mountain of things that they could do, but we're going back to the stuff that didn't work. And so like, I'm cautiously optimistic. I really hope it's good. I truly do. I will, you know, you invite me over. I don't have HBO, but if you guys do, I will totally come watch it with you guys.
We will.
Yeah, I would love that. I will. Like, I'll totally do that.
Clockwork Orange. Have your eyes stuck open.
Hey, you know.
No, that's going to be him with the Ultimate Edition of BVS first. For 3 hours.
I did
no
that.
No eye drops.
I did that already. It was.
You didn't count.
I don't think you fully did it. I don't know.
There's a MacGuffin somewhere in there.
So to your point, I can see that the older versions of characters is what people are having a hard time overcoming. Everyone in their mind specifically, and that's where it was a much smoother road for Marvel. Is, you know, they were establishing their version, so it didn't matter how inconsistent they were, like Thor from movie to movie. That's just how they established him. What my hope is for people, you know, like you, who may not be so into this version of what Snyder was trying to do, is by the time you see his version of Justice League, then you go, oh, okay, let me go back and watch these other ones, because now I get it. Because his wife, Debbie, has also said that we eventually want to get to the version of the characters that people know and recognize, but they had to go through these building blocks before to get to those characters. So hopefully, and as Matt mentioned before we kind of went live with Sean O'Connell, that he had kind of said, I didn't really like Man of Steel at first, I believe, and then he went back and watched it and kind of understood.
He has the same problem that Nick does. He still doesn't like the neck snap.
Yeah,
he doesn't like it. He still has a problem with it. Even during the Man of Steel commentary just recently that Snyder did, the live commentary, he still, you know, he was still bringing that up, that he doesn't like the neck snap for the most part. I think, well, Snyder also did confirm in the BBS commentary he did, those guys did not die. Batman did not kill him.
he did. They crawled away off screen.
Yeah,
they just filmed that part.
The A-Team did. There was like a big explosion, but they still crawled away. So they're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Well, again, I have no problem with killing in movies. I really don't. I think it's just it. And again, I think this is just something that DC has to kind of work and try to figure out what they're going to do with. Is like, are we going with like current Superman? Are we going with, retro Superman? Are we going with animated series Superman? Are we going with Smallville Superman? Are we going with, like, there's so many different like versions of these. Like, I'm okay with them committing to something, and that's why I'm saying, like, I'm actually kind of wish that that he had been able to finish the movie, because at the very least I would like to have seen what his perspective would have been had it not been impacted by others. So
yeah, I guess O'Connell also doesn't like the Pa Kent death scene either. So
that's dumb. That's such a stupid part of the movie.
No. I'm putting you on. I'm muting you. No. Damn near made me cry recently.
Right. I know.
That shit got to me, man. That shit got to me.
I didn't know you had the power to mute other people. Can I mute you?
Yes.
There we go.
Now we're just all muting. Oh man.
Oh god. Anyway, so
yes, throw produce at Matt. I agree.
Okay, there we go. So I guess the ultimate question there, Nick, would be: would you? I mean, well, actually, did you get HBO Max already?
No.
Oh.
I'm not going to get HBO Max. I already have enough streaming services. I don't need more. Like, really, okay. I don't have time to watch all that either, to be honest.
So if it when it does come out, would you be interested at all at trying to get HBO Max to watch it? The Zack Snyder,
probably not. Personally, probably not.
Oh well,
I would, if someone else had it, I'd be interested in watching it, but like actually getting it myself specifically for that, no, I don't think so.
Not even one episode. Do a free trial and watch the first episode if it was episodic.
You know how those you know how those things are. You sign up for them and they say like, hey, we'll keep you around for, you'll get free 6 months, and then you forget 6 months in a day and they charge you $80.
Exactly.
So, no.
Motherfucker. Well, that flopped. I thought I was gonna get him with the Martian Manhunter thing and all that. There were some cool DC characters I want to see. I want to see, I want to see the Question. I want to see, I want to see Scarecrow done well. I want to see I want to see, what is it? Oh, I had it lost it. Like, I want to see Mr. Freeze come in. I want to see like there are DC characters I want to see, but I'm not going to commit to Justice League with, characters that honestly I haven't had that much investment in the first place.
So I guess another segue question based on that would be Matt Reeves' universe that he's building. Are you familiar with some of that stuff with Pattinson that's going to be playing? Robert Pattinson is going to be playing Batman. Not familiar with?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes.
Okay,
he's going to be Batman, and there's
from what the rumors and things that are starting to come out, it's seeming like he's establishing a like Arkham Asylum type universe where we're going to get a lot more villains in each of the movies. And I have a lot of these conversations with some of my coworkers, and I'm curious how you feel, number one, about if you've heard any of that stuff, and then also on the other side of it, do you think do you think that that the general fans, specifically, maybe even more general and removes from all of this stuff, can follow along with the different universes? Like we have the Joker movie that just came out with Joaquin Phoenix, and then, or I say just came out, but came out last year, and then Matt Reeves' Batman, and then now it seems like we are establishing more of the DC universe. Do you think? Are you interested in any of those? Do you think, are you going to have a hard time following along kind of loosely to DC stuff? Or
I think that the best kind of content that is, especially given the current like superhero landscape, is independent films that have little tie-ins here and there. I find the stuff that has the most dense interconnectivity or the most dense continuity tends to, number one, be harder to follow, and number two, tends to not play as well. And so, that's why I don't like Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron, like, just, it's not well done. And same thing with like Thor: The Dark World. Like, those are both movies that had a ton of dumb continuity in it that didn't need to be there, that I think didn't really work well. And so if DC wants to, I think, succeed, they need to make things that are independently well done and then kind of find ways to weave them together. Like, I think that's okay. Like, or if, like you said, if there's different universes, I think that's fine too. As long as, like, if I can sit down and watch, I don't know, like the new Wonder Woman movie. Like I want to see that. Like, if I can sit down and watch that movie, enjoy it, have a fun time, watch what she does, and then, hit these little like Easter eggs here and there, I think that'd be totally fine. If I could watch Justice League, and if they threw in, like I said, a younger dark side that's just kind of like a little Easter egg or a little like nod, that's good. I think that if they try too hard to pull like a Crisis on Infinite Earths, like, which I from what I heard, the TV show actually went really well, but like the comics can get, right. Yeah, the comics can get a little wonky. But I think that, and that's been DC's, truth be told, that's been DC's, just even in the comics, one of the hardest things that they have is the idea of continuity. It becomes such a dense web that it can actually push people out. And so if they're able to create something that is cohesive, that makes sense, that's entertaining, I'll watch it, even if it is like 3 separate universes. If it's like the pre-Flashpoint universe and the post-Flashpoint universe, and like the TV CW universe and the animated universe, like I'm fine with a variety of stuff as long as they're well produced and they're well made. Like, I don't think that it has to be so rigidly tied together, because I think that's where people get stuck. I think that's where the movies fall apart, is when they try too hard to make it just like, we have to find ways to explain why Superman doesn't have a mustache, or we have to explain why, like seriously, like they could have had him as a mustache and who cares? Like, honestly, like they could have done that, but like I think they try too hard in this continuity line, and then it kind of falls apart.
Well, this is something that Shane and I discussed quite a bit, is that, we did get some of these independent type DC movies. We got, Aquaman was very loosely connected. Shazam is very loosely connected. Shazam is kind of bipolar in some sense, because it dips in all wells. It's not just the current DCEU. They use the John Williams score. They use different aspects, a different type of Batman look anyway. For the most part, they dip in different wells completely with Shazam. And at this point, though, we're watching all these, and yes, some of them are solid. I like Shazam. So for the third act, I thought it was a little sloppy. But then you start getting to Birds of Prey, and you're like, okay, these just aren't really meaning anything anymore. Even if they're good, they're not meaning anything.
Right.
And they're not doing anything for us. And then when you look now at this, what Justice League is trying to do, and what the AyerCut is trying to do, and then what they're pushing forward possibly with this, because it could be a thing where if this Justice League is successful, this could be an HBO exclusive type thing where that Justice League would be like season 1, and Justice League 2 would be a season 2, because Snyder had a 5-film arc. He was going to do 3 Justice Leagues in a row. Mm-hmm. And Justice League 2 would be like a season 2, and Justice League 3 would be like a season 3. And they could go full Game of Thrones type setup on this, and push it forward from there. And that just sounds like, to me, when you got like the Joker and Robert Pattinson's Batman, which are going to be they're off the radar completely. I like having both. I like the fact that we could have HBO Max have all that connectivity, enjoy all that interconnected greatness, and then also we can get some solid movies on the silver screen with Joker and hopefully the Batman pretty soon. So I think that's the one thing that DC is actually really taking advantage of so far, is that they're using, they kind of fell ass backwards into the Joker thing, where it's completely disconnected, and it's like a black label. They were, or dark label, that's what they were calling it, like the dark label, just DC universe, because it has absolutely no connection to anything. And now it kind of looks like you can kind of do those dark, the dark, what is it, dark DC universe type thing, dark label, that's what it was. And then you can also do the other ones, the ones that we saw with the Henry Cavill, the Ben Affleck, the Gal Gadot ones and stuff like that. And their Aquaman and Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman could be separated from all that in general. It's just an Elseworld story. And I think the fact that they did this with HBO Max, I kind of feel like, this is the moment. They're doing something different. They're not trying to replicate Marvel anymore, because that's the problem they were trying to do.
Yep.
Replicate them. They're just kind of doing their own shit now. And AT&T is the new bosses in town, because they have bought Warner Brothers. And I think they're just looking at all these IPs and looking at all this demand and being like, well, why the hell aren't we just doing everything that we possibly can to make money right now? Why this thing is somewhat hot? Why superheroes are still hot? Let's do everything that we can to, I guess, basically what I'm saying is milk the shit out of this IP for the most part, because we have all these characters. Why aren't we utilizing them more? Why are we just, why are we making it? Yeah, exactly. And
we don't need any more Batman. I'm sorry. I love Batman. I genuinely love Batman.
But now he's got a Ford GT as a Batmobile. Did you see it? It's like got a Fast and Furious.
Isn't it supposed to be like year one, like what they're shooting for? Of like it's going to be like the first year of him being Batman.
I don't think so. I mean, there's some rumors going out there, but this is from some of the more better rumors is that he's not completely just started. He's ran into the Penguin and maybe one other criminal mastermind, but other than that, Colin Farrell, man, we're gonna have a sophisticated Penguin now. All right.
Okay, Danny DeVito is not a good Penguin. Okay, he's just not. Okay, like the Penguin needs to be like arrogant, but not super gross. Okay, he's like,
black goo. He doesn't need to be squirting black goo.
Right, biting people's noses. Are you sure? Are you sure?
Coming down in like a gross.
Here.
I mean, look at any splash page for any like massive event comic in either DC or Marvel. Give me more of those characters. Like seriously, give me like the variety. Okay, like give me Stargirl. Give me like we are
going to have in Zack Snyder's Justice League also, I forgot to mention this, but there is Ryan Choi, which is a version of the Atom.
So that would be cool.
They're going to have his version in there. Yeah, now, I'm not sure how much of a part he has, but he works with Silas Stone in this, and that's what they've shown so far. And I think eventually Zack Snyder has labeled him as the Atom, but I just don't know if he's the Atom in this movie or will be an Atom eventually later on. But it's just that nice little Easter egg right there. And I thought that was kind of cool to have the Atom for the most part. I think that adds some very, very great possibilities and stuff like that. Because, again, as much as it sounds a lot like Infinity War and Endgame, but there was a lot of time travel involved in the future Justice League movies for the most part. That's the whole point of the Batman versus Superman thing, is that Nightmare scene, we're seeing the future. And then Flash is on the cosmic treadmill coming back to see Batfleck. And that's what we're seeing is that possible future where Darkseid pretty much scorches the entire Earth and possesses Superman with the anti-life equation. That's what we're seeing in that. So it's like this big, huge thing that he had planned. I mean, just epicness and very similar. But you didn't watch it, so
go ahead and finish your point, Matt. But this was something that came immediately to my mind when Nick was talking about what he would prefer in kind of universe building. But go ahead and finish your point.
Well, the thing is that it's similar as it sounds to Endgame, but Justice League 3 was going to end in a very similar way, like Endgame, where we saw the history lesson where all those Atlanteans, Amazonians, the gods were fighting Steppenwolf in the theatrical cut, but it'll be Darkseid in Zack Snyder's version. Basically, Justice League 3 was going to end on a very similar thing with a powered-up super Darkseid and this Justice League, almost Justice League Unlimited type setup versus Atlanteans, Amazonians, and it was going to be another huge battle on Earth again for the sake of everything and stuff like that with the Justice League this time instead of gods. So that's kind of like what he was ending that whole Justice League with. So it's kind of it's a really hit or miss thing. Like, is this epic enough? Will this draw enough eyes? Will it push people far enough? Like if I told you, again, this is possible spoilers, guys. If I told you that this Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, could end on a cliffhanger of showing Darkseid killing a pregnant Lois Lane, does that? Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's a reason why Superman succumbs to the anti-life equation, and that's because Darkseid kills Lois when she had his child.
So it's just Joker from Injustice, okay?
Yeah, there is the mix and match there for the most part. There is some things going there, but it's just kind of it's crazy to see how much things might change. Also, the Steppenwolf design might be different as well, because Snyder actually had a different design and they changed it. And so it's a more... Actually, do you remember the part in Batman vs. Superman where Lex Luthor is seeing that hologram of holding the three boxes?
Mm-hmm.
No, okay. Oh, you do remember that?
I try not to remember that, but I do.
But that's one design, but he had a more menacing design. So I mean, that's how different this movie could be. Is that the Steppenwolf, the main villain, may look completely different. There's a possibility that he could look completely different, and that's, I don't know. So anyway, we'll go to the Birds of Prey thing.
Okay, so we were talking about, or you were mentioning how you feel a universe should be built in terms of like doing these individual movies and then having like little Easter eggs and stuff here or there. And I think the point that Matt was making is that Snyder had, and and this is taking his word for gold, which we do. I mean, he hasn't let us, off the beaten path yet, but at pretty much everything that he had plans for, and like Matt said, he was going to build this epic universe that we could kind of branch off of and have these lesser known characters that would start, like Cyborg is pretty much the main focus of Justice League 1. So my point with Birds of Prey is that's where it lost people like Matt and I who are invested in this universe, is they slowly it's pretty much on its own. It's a standalone thing. And then they show a brief thing of the back of Jared Leto's Joker's head and a small clip from Suicide Squad. And then that's it. So it kind of tells you, okay, it's linked to the rest of these, but then it's really not. And that's where it lost us, because they could interweave these so much better and actually have the Joker be a big part of the emancipation of one Harley Quinn and things like that. And that's where, had everything gone, and maybe what I'm hoping for, and I'm a lot more optimistic now that we have the Snyder Cut that's coming out, that maybe the wrongs will be righted and we will start to actually develop a decent universe, still kind of have movies like the Joker and Matt Reeves' Batman off to the side, but at the same time, we can have the universe that we initially wanted. And I think that's what a lot of us Snyder fans are hoping for and what we would want to see. And I guess my point is, do you think that if it got to that point, it may bring you back in if you go, okay, Justice League 1, Zack Snyder's Justice League has been released, and you can start to see, oh, wait, there's a Cyborg movie maybe, that's going to be off connected somehow, and Flash movies. And would you see that now I'm back into it because they are starting to establish some of the lesser known characters?
Again, I love DC. I really do. And I would love to see more things in the DC universe that are interesting and weird takes and a different direction and stuff. And I'm saying that would not keep me away. I guess my concern is just, like I said, truth be told, the Snyder perspective, those films that I did see that were Snyder, they didn't hook me as much as I think some of the other things might. And so I think that Justice League would have to be something, and I think that's kind of, and maybe I'm kind of speaking a little freely here, but I feel like a lot of the movies that have been more successful in the DC universe have been the ones that have strayed a little bit away from the Snyder perspective. You're talking about like you mentioned Shazam and Aquaman, and it seems like those ones have had much more of a universal accepted higher praise.
Shazam's box office would say differently, but Aquaman for sure. But I mean, that's a Snyder casting right there. Jason Momoa makes that movie, even though it's not a blonde white version of Aquaman. He's got a Polynesian guy with dark,
which makes total sense. Which
with an Islander type guy, which makes actually a lot more sense in most part. But that's a Snyder casting, and that's Momoa's personality selling that movie more than anything.
Right.
Shazam's box office wasn't as good as they hoped, because they wedged it right between bootleg Captain Marvel and Endgame, and they didn't. That was a very poor choice in timing for the most part, because I think they just totally screwed them. It should have been a Christmas movie. Mm-hmm. It's during Christmas time. It should have been released in December.
It's a kids movie, like perfect time to do it. Yeah.
But it was just stupidity on DC's part for that. And Birds of Prey, again, they put it in February, didn't do very well. Now Joker standalone, that's a darker, gritty, rated R movie. That did do really well. That broke $1 billion. So I think it's really to say that like it's good or bad without him, I think is kind of just pointless, because nothing really tells you definitively one way or another. It just seems like, I think people, whether it's Snyder or not, I think what people are craving is a DC connected universe for the most part. I think that's what people are craving. We don't mind the standalone movies like the Joker one or the Aquaman one, which doesn't have too much connections to it. But at the same time, I think we still need a point. We need something to kind of build, at least means something a little bit more. And Birds of Prey, the best thing they got is she points to a wanted poster with Captain Boomerang and says, "I know that guy." Yeah. That's like that's really the only connection. That's and
back of Jared Leto's head.
Yeah, in the back of Jared Leto's head. I mean, that's really it, and it's kind of pathetic. And it just seems like DC's current management was trying to sway it away as much as possible, and now AT&T has come in and said, "Fuck it, we're gonna goddamn do whatever the hell we want." And this is what's going to happen. And Steve Rogers wants to know.
Steve Rogers says that.
Oh, that's a beautiful picture of him. I'm smoking iced tea.
So, Nick, I know you have to work tomorrow. Do you need to vamonos for the most part?
I mean, whatever you guys want. Like, I'm open for whatever. If you want to kick me out, I'll get out. If they want me to leave, I'll go.
No.
Oh, no, it's up to you, man. I just want to make sure, because we're going to kind of talk, I wanted to talk briefly about some other things here that are coming up. So if you want to participate in that, you are more than welcome to stay around.
I guess probably stay for a couple more minutes.
I just know you have a busy schedule and that you're working. You work tomorrow, so I just want to make sure that we're.
I actually don't work tomorrow, but I'm always busy.
Yes.
Hopefully I haven't. I know that it probably pissed off the chat, and I've been reading the chat, and it's kind of fun. but my intention is not to troll anybody or to be too much in one way or the other. I got to give my perspective.
You know what? We've always prided ourselves, and exactly why we bring you on to begin with, on having a different perspective, because not everyone thinks like us, and we try to be open-minded. It's about to be a smackdown. We try to be open-minded to different perspectives and things like that, and we're hoping that the DC universe does get back on the right track. And like Matt said, for me, I like the idea of having these one-off movies and things like that, but. About half of Endgame I didn't really like, but then the other half it gave me chills because I was like, okay, they built to this point, and I would love to see the DC universe get to the point where we can have an epic showdown of, like Matt mentioned earlier, of the Justice League, unlimited type scope, and that's what I would beg to see. So before we segue on to something else, cheers. To a bam! Look at that! Cheers to a better version of the DC universe. So,
100%. If they do well, I'll love it. That's all I gotta say. If they make a Batman v Superman, I'm out.
I still think if you watch it in the right mind, especially as you kind of already peeled the curtain back. You are a therapist. Is your day job. By night you beat up criminals, but I think if you were to watch that movie in a different mind frame, again, it would take you investing 3 hours. That's awesome. It would take 3 hours of you investing in it, but I think you go, oh, okay. This is where some of these characters are.
Nick is like that friendly uncle that you invite to every other reunion and stuff like that. That you love him so much, but at the same time he says really crazy shit. That's that guy. You love him.
I'm not the uncle that drops the N-word, so we're good. So.
Yeah.
On that note, Matt, what else we got?
Okay, so Shane and I really wanted to talk about this because Shane or Nick, I don't know how much you actually followed this, so you're going to be along for the ride for the most part on this one. Let me bring this bad boy up for the most part. And I'm saying most part, and I've been told I say it too much. All right. So something that I find kind of interesting is now that we're seeing a lot, the Zack Snyder's Justice League coming out, we're seeing all this different stuff. Like we may bring it back. Henry Cavill Superman. Again, we have seen a lot of I don't know if you want to call it attacks, toxicity, however you want to call it for the most part. We're starting to see a lot of people getting angry and bringing up those old wounds for the most part about the universe. One of them was I've seen frequently is, of course, people are bringing back up that old Justice League photos where it's like, this is what happens when a man directs, and this is what happens when a woman directs, and it shows the Amazonian.
Yeah.
And I've seen that one brought up again, and a lot of other things have been brought up about Zack Snyder and stuff like that. It's like this whole thing is starting over again, and a lot of people have talked about when Batman vs. Superman came out, there was this, again, and I think in a lot of people's eyes, a form of toxicity. People were hating on it before it ever even came out, or hating on Snyder in some sense, and it seemed like a lot of people had agendas and motivations. And I think when it comes to a lot of things, everybody always has some kind of agenda or motivation. But I thought this was kind of interesting by Grace Randolph saying, I would think by now the DCEU fans would be used to all the negative reporting and commentary in social media, even from the media. Remember the lies and drama with BVS, with the return of the Snyder Cut, the return of the with the return of the Snyder Cut, the return of the negativity. So Shane and I were talking about this, and we're like, okay, so here we go again. That's the whole thing with this GIF. Here we go again. So, and I've seen a lot of people saying we can't let this happen again. DC fans, we can't let the media, or however they want to call themselves for the most part, do this. And I've seen a lot of people going out there and I guess you could say fighting the good fight, or being extremely toxic back for the most part. They're trying to fight fire with fire. So it's kind of an interesting concept, because at some point I would just like people to give the damn movie a chance and not make up such petty fucking reasons. I wish we could just see the movie and then break down the movie, but a lot of people got to break down, you know, a still image or talk shit about the director. It doesn't feel like we can actually have a real discussion about the movie. And I know Shane and I really want to talk about this. You can tell he's just enthusiastic.
Yes. Boom. I'm ready to go. Yeah. I mean, so one of the things that Matt and I had talked about on the on the side was the fact that this is feeling so similar as the tweet that he just read. It's feeling so similar to BVS that you know, people they're just trying to bring it down. And you know, we had the tweets of people comparing costumes, female costumes, and even, you know, a lot of the Amazonians preferred Snyder's version where it shows the hard work they put into their bodies, you know, killing it in the gym. And there's just so much like negativity that's been floating out there that I'm frustrated. And it feels so eerily similar to BVS of how people are just trying no matter what to bring it down. And then, you know, we do have some other things. And what I was trying to do, which is why I was so distracted, is try to bring up a tweet from Andy Signor that he basically talks about, like, you know what, it's time to change the negative path that I was on. And he said I was fueling, or I was spotlighting and fueling some of the few douchebags that I ran into, thinking that all of them basically spoke for the Snyderverse and, you know, and the Snyder cult and stuff like that. And it's essentially, you know, we need to move on from this, and the negativity that's just been surrounding this and continues to get surrounding this whole thing is just mind-boggling to me. And I don't get where it comes from, but I think for us, we just need to continue just to move past all of it and, you know, ignore it, don't spotlight any of it, and overcome. And I think that's where a lot of us went wrong, you know, jumping on the train of defending BVS initially.
Yeah, one of the things that I find fascinating about this is that you know, everybody's grouping, and whatever side you're on, people are grouping people in. You know, if it's the journalists, all journalists suck. They're all trying to bring this thing down. You know, obviously there's some that are obviously not so biased and stuff like that. And of course, there's a lot of people that are hating on this movie just because they ran into a couple toxic assholes on Twitter, which, by the way, is just amazing. How do you run into toxic people on Twitter? That doesn't seem possible at all.
Right.
And I don't know. When people start just jamming everybody together in one particular group, because that's the easiest way to handle things, it drives me nuts. It really does just drive me insane. But to see these people just go back to those old 2016, 2017 complaints, yeah. Unfortunately, we know who that is now. Nope. The Jody's Corner thing. Yeah, and I know who that guy is now and stuff like that. Who's clicking on all that?
Sorry, that was an accident. I was like trying to get to the actual thing, and then
And yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing, and I don't know if like what is the route to go? Do you try to stand your ground and fight with these people and stuff like that? Do you let them railroad it again, or at this point is this thing just gonna do its own course naturally? It's gonna be, I mean, it's on HBO Max. These people, there is no Rotten Tomatoes. Well, I mean, there could be a Rotten Tomatoes score for it, but there is no. They can't touch it. There's no box office to affect. Either way, they're gonna be doing. Either way, this is gonna happen for the most part. So I don't know if it's even worth fighting. And then yeah, this ignored douche is got.
So this is what I was talking about, and I hope more people. If he absolutely truly means this,
he doesn't.
And then in some of the comments, you know, he says that Jody is one of his friends. Nick, just to kind of loop you in, these guys they've shit all over everything that Snyder has done, and no, Snyder Cut didn't exist, and blah blah blah. But he says, you know, I'm trying
the one
to
guy called people mentally challenged if they liked Snyder movies. One of the guys did. The Jody guy, he's done a lot lately. I've seen a lot of clips, and whether they're out of context or not, I'm not sure. But I mean, he has said a lot of things because of what AT&T has done. He basically said like AT&T bought the plantation, and now WB are the slaves. Did you see that?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of. He is milking this cow on the opposite side of like, oh, look at all the controversy that I'm bringing, and that's essentially what's, if he doesn't talk about Snyder in the negative way, he's not getting the views, so that's why he's doing it. But I hope that people, and you know, I'm gonna give Andy the benefit of the doubt, and I hope that he's realizing that
in the beginning, and he lost.
So there's a small portion of people, and you know, we've seen a lot of our friends who've just, you know, gotten thrown off by Snyder Cut fans as well, because maybe they disagreed with one thing or another. And I'm not sure. Maybe we were in that boat. I'm not really sure.
Because either a statue or he froze.
I think I'm frozen.
Oh no!
I can still hear you. It's all good.
Perfectly, like
you're impressive. That's all right.
I don't know. I don't know where I went, but I can still hear you. I'm here.
Okay,
we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, nice and clear. But I'm hoping that. Oh, did we lose Nick completely?
Yeah, I think we did.
Dang.
Just keep going. I'm
all
sure.
Right. So I'm hoping
that was just a way to bail out. He's like, he's
I'm like I said, I'm giving Andy the benefit of the doubt. I'm hoping that he goes, you know what? It was it's a vocal minority that Nick's shooting me a tweet or a text message real quick. But yeah, it is a vocal minority of people that are making a lot of Snyder supporters look bad. And ultimately, my point that I'm trying to get to with this whole thing is I feel that as long as we continue, to do, you know, just the positive things, as long as we continue to do the positive things that Snyder fans do, supporting, you know, suicide prevention, voicing our opinion in a positive way, and ignore this crap. The main thing is you cannot click on the articles, you cannot click on the videos. You just have to know. You have to know. Look, Jackass Jody is not going to talk anything positive. Don't give him the time of day, unless you're Film Gob and you're going to splice things together because it's hilarious. Then that's fine. But if you're not, don't give them the time of day. Don't get on there to even comment. Don't do it. If you give them the time of day, then they're winning. If we can continue, we'll continue to circulate the positive things. And I think this is where, and I'm just as guilty of it, and I'm sure Matt is too, where we went wrong with the BVS stuff is getting so vehemently like just frustrated of like, no, you can't be this stupid. And I mean, that's the reason we started this whole show to begin with, is we were so frustrated of like, you can't be this stupid to think that this movie is as terrible as you're making it seem. And then, you know, we have some of the stuff coming out that, oh, Zack Snyder, it's why we have our Snyder Myths segments, you know, where we had the two talking about that, you know, he doesn't understand superheroes and things like that. But it's important just to keep with the positive, keep spreading like the optimism and the things that I'm starting to see a lot in hopes for the Snyder universe to come full circle and and focus on that side of it. But it's important to not give the clicks, not give them the time of the day. Don't retweet them. Don't do any of that crap. Just move on.
Same here. I didn't even know who Jody's Corner really was. I saw one Film God video on him a long time ago, but I didn't know who he was. I mean, so it really didn't hit home for me at all. And I didn't really know. It was still kind of funny because obviously he's contradicting himself in the video that Film God did, but I didn't even know who he was. So it was just kind of a weird thing to see. And Andy Signore, I kind of knew who he was. And I even told Shane that I was giving him, in the beginning, I was giving him a benefit of the doubt, which Shane's response was kind of funny. He's like, that's kind of weird for you to feel
yeah,
bad. That's true. For someone, because I kind of felt bad for him. I thought he was just trying to make a name for himself again. And he was trying to, he was so desperate to try to get back in the limelight again that he was coming up with stupid shit. And I thought he would kind of say it and go away. And he didn't. He kept pushing harder and harder for it. And that was, there we go. Nick's back.
Boom.
Watch your numbers just plummet. Sorry.
But it's kind of a weird thing, like with the Andy Signore stuff, and I don't know. And then there's the AFSP stuff. I guess that Jody guy was doing a reject the Snyder Cut shirt, but he eventually, I guess he got to a point where he was going to donate it to AFSP.
So it's bullshit.
But I guess it got pulled down. I don't know what happened, but it's just, man, it's just so. For me personally, it's a weird thing because I wasn't on social media prior 2016. I didn't have any personal stuff. I still don't have any personal stuff, really. I only use the comic movie Mark's banner. I didn't have anything then. I never saw these wars or what was going on social media for the most part. I only saw YouTube videos. And I saw a couple people with YouTube videos and they're bitching about the dumbest stuff. They're like, top 10 list, why Batman vs. Superman is the worst movie of all time. And like 9.5 out of 10. Shut up, Nick. And 9.5 out of 10 were terrible reasons. Like they were just the dumbest fucking reasons. And it would all just end on Martha. Like they would just end on that every time. And it's just like, God damn, everybody just repeats the same shit. And now recently, and I think Film God did the splicing, it was just more repeating. It's like a lot of these people again are saying that giving the fans the Snyder Cut is setting a bad precedent. And I think he had a nice little compilation of like multiple people from
It's a bad precedent. It's a bad precedent. It's a bad precedent. It's a bad precedent. Fuckers don't even know what precedent means. I'm sure. I don't.
All right, guys, this is going to set a bad precedent if you do that, okay?
And it's a crazy thing to see. Like you see those with local news compilations. I've seen that before where they'll repeat, like they'll be using the words over and over again, pandemic or epidemic or something like that. It'll be like local news, and a lot of people talk about how bad local news are fed the same stuff because they're like owned by
fed the same exact nonsense. Yep.
And it's like this, and I'm watching this, and like everybody's saying the same thing now, and I'm like, no, this can't be it. I mean, these are YouTubers and stuff. These people, there's no way that there's like a controlling narrative going on. Are these people just, I hate to say it, but are they just sheep? Do they all say the same thing? I woke up in America, okay? I'm not a sheep. I just thought that recently when I argued with somebody about something, so I just love how he said that. I woke up in America, all right? I'm not a sheep.
No, but based on an obesity problem, you're probably a cow, so...
Oh, thanks a lot. I'm just going to hide over here now.
That was not directed directly at you, Matt. I'm just saying in general.
So, Nick, are you just trying to have another client or something?
Hey, I may or may not be trying to, to fish for more clients here.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man.
All right.
It means
that problem.
Man.
I guess, I mean, if I can just kind of, as someone who is not like the Snyder.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
As someone who's not in the like Snyder Cut, like release Snyder Cut kind of like group, I guess. So I only kind of saw it from the like the outside. I can.
All right, sorry. Go ahead.
No, but as someone who's come on the outside, I can only go with what I've kind of experienced, kind of what's being visible. And I guess kind of like, and again, that's why I trust you guys, because I know you guys, you're my friends and stuff. But a lot, and maybe this is just like you kind of mentioned, maybe just the way it's being portrayed in like the general population was very kind of toxic. Like it was kind of, this like, ragging on other people and, fuck Marvel. And, if you didn't agree with them, then you were, an asshole. And like, there's, I get, and again, I can only speak from what I've seen from the outside. And so I know that like the people who are in this like group are not that. Like I know that there's not this mentality of like toxicity and violence like that. But I can only speak from what I've seen. And so when you talk about like how I guess other people are responding to this, like I guess I get that's kind of the way that I would perceive it, is that maybe we need more people like you guys talking about it. Like I feel like that not say you guys haven't been talking, but
Oh, he stroked again.
Oh no,
that's okay. We can still hear you. There he is. There he's back. No, actually,
hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
That guy's got to talk. Yeah. No, we actually did have a comment on. I don't remember which video it was. Maybe our Snyder Cut one, but it was kind of a funny one. He's like, "What?" It was basically saying, it said, "What?" Question mark. Modern DC fans that want the Snyder Cut and appreciate the Donner Cut. What kind of sorcery is this? It was just this weird comment that made me laugh so much. And I was just like, I don't know if like we're the norm or what's that. I remember we did a couple interviews at you were there actually at the Reno Con, the Reno Comic Con that we ran into a guy that was wearing the old Reeves costume named Carter. And yes, Superman, was it Superman 1 was his favorite, the first one? I can't believe, I don't know if that was his number 1. And then number 2 was Superman 2, but tied with it almost was Man of Steel. And he just loved the variations, the complete opposite of the two. And that's something that he truly appreciated. That one was one definitively, and the other one was almost a 180 for the most part of like what Superman could be. And he truly appreciated that. And I thought that was one of the best perspectives to have is kind of understanding that, there is multiple versions. It's 80 years of damn comics. I mean, can't be all the fucking same.
As long as they're not reflecting the 90s comics, I think we're okay.
Hey, some of those were fantastic. That Superman, I'm pretty sure was 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and with the mullet, you have. Oh man, I eat that stuff up.
Tuesday's boring. I'm sorry.
Don't you forget the actually this is kind of somewhat of an inside story, but for I want to say it was a wedding gift. Nick got me 100 Superman comics. Mm-hmm. And they were all some of the most just out there, most from the 90s comics. And I didn't read all of them, but I read through quite a few, and I'm like, man, these are just so bizarre, but they're so fantastic. So fantastic. I love it. And I love you for that. But I think in terms of like you said, a lot of people are focusing on the small minority that unfortunately are vocal and probably get on the Marvel videos and stuff like that and say unnecessary things. But when you actually take a look at what a lot of the Snyders what a lot of Snyder fans do and what basically what we want, and I feel there was a point where I feel that there was a point, unfortunately, where there was like a line drawn in the sand of like and it was around the time of BVS that instead of saying, oh, look, we can have both of these, it was from my perspective, a lot of people who liked MCU movies were saying, no, BVS is complete crap. It's a 1 out of 5, blah, blah, blah. And instead of going, oh, I prefer Marvel, I prefer Civil War, but BVS is, it's middle of the road for me. And it just felt like there was a line drawn in the sand. And then I started seeing unnecessary stuff, and this is where Matt and I were texting where I'm like, man, it feels like BVS all over again. Is they're calling like Snyder sexist. He's been called racist. Oh, he doesn't know how to formulate a movie very well, and he's only a visual director, and he doesn't understand superheroes and all this stuff. And so that's where it's your blood starts boiling a little bit, where you're like, what nonsense are you speaking about? And then people are writing articles about it. and then other people are clicking on it, and then they're sharing it, and they're like, yeah, see, and that's where the dangerous precedent comes from. Is there was an article that was written that was titled that, and then everyone just regurgitates the same nonsense and says, we're setting a dangerous precedent by giving them what they want. And, and so it was weird that at BVS, it felt like there was a line drawn in the sand. And I feel that there was a lot of Snyder fans and people who wanted that version, and BVS fans who probably overreacted and went the other way of like, well, fine. Matt and I I'll give you a perfect example of how we overreacted. We shit all over Lego Batman, the movie, because people were saying that that the Joker, the Zach Galifianakis' Joker was better than Jared Leto or anything in the DC universe. So when you listen to our review, we crap all over it. And then eventually when you like
Joker,
yeah, and then when you realize they're like, why did we crap all over Lego Batman? Because we got so defensive of like, stop shitting on our universe and what we're trying to build. This was long before Justice League. What we want to see, just because you don't want to see it, doesn't mean that that there isn't a group of people that do. And that's the same thing with the version of the Snyder Cut. Why it's so frustrating is, why can't, if you don't want to see the Snyder Cut, then who cares? Then don't. Then just move on. Let us have our thing. But instead of that, and that's where the Jody's corner, the joke in the corner that he overdoes it, is instead of just saying, okay, I'm not interested in the Snyder Cut, you guys can have your thing. He's like, no, don't give them the Snyder Cut. And then again with the article, no, that sets a dangerous precedent. Well, you don't have to watch it. Let us enjoy our thing. The movies will continue to come out, and that's where people start getting frustrated, and it's just weird. It feels like we're in the Twilight Zone here.
Yeah, it's the old Batman adage. Does Batman create his own villains? And it's like, do these ridiculous statements, because as I'm getting older, I'm having harder and harder issues with when I hear something really stupid. I'm starting to like really overreact, which I never really did before too much. But when I hear something truly, truly stupid, I'm like, and I get pretty freaking angry, and I read them and stuff, and I'm like, God damn, man, it's just like it's getting to you more and more. It adds up, it stacks up, and just seeing some of these things that people are writing, and the movie just got announced, and some people are already they're already shitting on it, and they haven't even seen it yet. One guy,
terrible. Yeah,
we did one video called A Fan's Journey, and one dude's like, oh no, this is an idiot story, and I was like, okay, and I was like, no, it's an idiot's journey. It's not a story, it's a journey. And then he's like, what happens when the movie's worse than what we got in theaters? And I'm like, it's going to be the same thing that happens if it's great. People are just going to be arguing like motherfuckers on the internet. That's what's going to happen. It's the same thing is going to happen. So what do you think is going to change? And at this point, I just don't know what, as fans of Snyder, do you keep doing? Because you don't, being a dickhead and just torching people and stuff like that, that only goes so far. Film Gob is really good at it for the most part, because he's able just to splice some of the funniest shit together. But where does it go for everybody else? If you're just in people's mentions all the time, calling them pieces of shit and blah, 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 does that really change their mind, or does that just reinforce their already biased fucking nature? I don't know. I guess really all you can do is fight the negative content with positive content, trying to show some aspects, obviously in Snyder's version, personally, I'm going to be honest here. Personally, this is not a big deal to me, but I could see that for a lot of fans that do care about this stuff, it's a much more diverse cast. It gives Cyborg way more. He's the heart of the film. Brian Choi as the Atom. You're bringing in more people, and you're spreading, that you're spreading it out a lot more. Yeah, I do need therapy. Is
that where you're laughing at, Nick?
I was like, I don't even need to say anything, and he goes and starts talking about his feelings. It's so easy.
And Matt's like real close to the mic and everything. I'm like, man, we just have to. Next
okay, you can talk a little later.
Right. So what we need to do, guys, is no.
That's some ASMR shit that's getting a little weird there.
But yeah, it's just, that's the only thing I can think of, is that I guess being more aware of some of the stuff is there. But I guess I just, as fans, what do you do? What do you do? And that's the ultimate question. And I don't know.
Ignore it.
You don't feed the trolls. And I think that's kind of this mentality, is that if we meet hatred with hatred, then that's all we're going to get back. It's just going to be this constant battle. Did I freeze? Am I there still?
Yeah. Well, we can hear you.
Okay.
You're frozen. Okay.
There we go.
God,
you were like,
I do therapy all day long on telehealth, and it doesn't do this. And I do one thing with you guys, and I'm done.
That's all right. I've had the same issue.
No, but
I've never had that issue.
Well, you don't have kids playing Fortnite in your house, and at least for me, on my side, I pay for expensive ass internet, and it's still they're just taking all my bandwidth.
No, but I think, like, especially with so much of this, when we, and I know that Marvel fan people can do the same in this sense of being and antagonizing, and I obviously joke with you guys because we're friends and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I don't hold ill will to people who enjoy those films, and I think that in order for us to really cultivate a strong community, not just just a movie community, just a superhero community, we have to realize that there are going to be hits and misses on both sides, and that if because there are going to be people like you're mentioning who are just going to be like, let's stoke the flames, and let's like,
right,
let's spread the hate and spread all the problems. And I think that you guys are mentioning it very clearly, that when you fight that kind of stuff back with more aggression, all you're doing is you're talking past each other. There's no discussion. There's no talking. There's no let's make better films or better stories. It's just let's just talk past each other, and I'm right. No, I'm right. And now we're just doing this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help anybody, because we need to have a candid discussion about these films and about these stories, that they're really not that good, or if they could be improved. Like,
and there's nothing wrong with giving opinions. It's just it's amazing, and maybe this is my old age talking or something, but it's definitely like you start to realize at the end of it all, the fact that superhero movies are making $1 billion and are doing as well in the box office and are so just in the front of pop culture, and all of these different companies, even like Amazon Prime has their superhero shows, and the CW. And
by the way, Nick, have you seen The Boys?
I want to see it really bad. I've not yet. But
you need to watch that one as soon as possible. Okay. Go ahead.
I'll put it on the list.
Yeah, I thought you were about to mute him again. You haven't seen The Boys? Nah. All right. But it's like the more that I start to realize, like, we're winning as nerds and as people who grew up, like Matt and myself had friggin' superhero logos on our cars, for crying out loud. And to think that was in 2004, 2005.
Not tiny decals either. These were full,
gigantic. Yes.
On the hood.
Yes.
He's covered the whole hood.
My wife hated it.
I remember your Superman car. Yes.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Of my Chrysler LeBaron. But it's like, to think that back then in 2004, when we're these stupid comic nerds, and we're just shy of having Superman Returns come out in the theaters, to where we are now. Like, we're as a comic book culture and just nerds, we're winning. So why can't we just all enjoy that together? And I know that sounds cheesy and cliche of like, maybe I don't care about certain movies that Marvel puts out or whoever, and no, that really wasn't for me. But same thing in the other vein. If you don't like what Snyder did, then you don't have to go see it, but don't crap all over it and start calling him a sexist. And look, because I don't even really want to try to find the picture, but that they're comparing costumes and basically saying, oh yeah, see what happens when if you're a male and you're a male director, and these are the female costumes that you have, and blah blah blah, versus a female director. But instead of doing crap like that, why can't we just all go, okay, yeah, that one really wasn't for me, but I'm just going to enjoy my side. And in some instances, it's worse in politics. I feel like some of the arguing that goes on is just, yeah, exactly. So with a lot of this stuff that's coming out, my goal is to not click on any of it, not share any of it, and continue to share and, donate to the Suicide Prevention Fund, and share that stuff. Some of the positive things that we're doing as a community, and just, if don't give Jody's Corner or any jackass like that the time of day.
So one thing I saw somebody wanted us to share real quick. I just wanted to show you this real quick, Rick. So this poster right here is I don't know if you know this or not, but Zack Snyder did a contest to someone that could come up with a poster for his Justice League, and a lot of people, I think it was well over 1,000 people tried. Even I think, do you know who Boss Logic is?
No.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so a lot of people, even professionals, tried and everything, but a guy named Victor Koo, who is Mighty Pegasus, who we did an interview with, and we got the first interview. Suck it, Chris Wong. This is the winning poster right here, and I'm trying to see if I can zoom in, and I don't know if I can. Okay, I was trying to zoom in more, and I don't think I can. But this was the winning poster, and actually, if you see, we'll expand back up here now. I don't know. I can't. Anyway, I have it right here in a frame. And did you really have to look like that? You're like,
you're on the top right of my screen, okay?
So it's right here, and it's pretty much the whole DCEU shoved in Darkseid's body for the most part.
Nice.
And it's a fantastic poster, and it's kind of a weird thing. That guy now has won a slate. Zack Snyder sent him a slate saying that he gives him permission now to come on set for the additional photography they're going to shoot. So now that guy that won the contest is actually going to go, and I presumably in California, somewhere in the maybe on the WB Studios lot, and they're going to ask, or he's going to be able to see this. So it's kind of cool. Somebody said we should show you the poster.
That's a really rad poster.
And it's just kind of a cool thing that this gentleman was also able to put this on a shirt. Donated the proceedings went to the suicide AFSP. So it's like there's these basic things, but no one ever really wants to talk about that. They really talk about sexism,
right?
Like
exactly.
That. It's fake nature and stuff like that. And it's a tough, I don't know. It's just a tough thing to weigh back and forth.
Yeah. Well, and it's using. I mean, Shane, you talked about how like we're like in kind of a renaissance now of like nerd culture, of like the fact that I guess porn time, sure, that's fine. Well, we are in a renaissance at this time where we're getting flooded with superheroes, and it's okay to more or less. Yes, that's me. More or less to like be able to expose a lot of the stuff that we really like, and I think that like I've mentioned.
He meant poster time. Wow,
I don't know what movie related's doing. What movies are you watching?
It knows you very well.
but like I mean, this is an opportunity for us to find community. If you've ever seen my office when I'm not working at home, like I'm literally in my office surrounded by superhero and comic book and cartoon action figures, because like I'm able, and I use that as a connection point with not just children that I work with, but also adults who like haven't, been able to really like talk about this stuff or be really open about this until really, like Spider-Man when it first started, when it came out in the early 2000s. And so like I think we've been kind of like blessed or gluttonous a little bit in terms of the content we get, and I think that we have to remember that this is, why we got interested in these stories in the first place is because they're about people who work hard to try to survive and help the world essentially.
Right.
And, and sometimes that works out well and sometimes it doesn't. And I think it's very easy to get stuck up in the minutia of like, he said, she said kind of perspective. And I think that when we do that, we lose track of why we go to these films in the first place.
Right.
Why we invest ourselves in this entertainment in the first place, which is, because, it's important to us because it helps represent something that our ideals that we hold strong or that we think is important. And I think that, don't get me wrong. Like, I do enjoy the Marvel movies more than I do enjoy the DC movies, but I don't think they're more than the other. Stop.
One thing about these costumes is that's completely true. The women even what's so annoying about this comparison is that the women that wore these costumes even said this stuff. They preferred these costumes because it gave them more mobility, because they have to do a bunch of action scenes and stuff like that. And they were talking about how they originally did have them in the more constricting things, and they had to loosen things up so they can move more. And plus, they work out like insane shit.
Right. Exactly. they could show off their abs and
and it was like women proud of their bodies and stuff. And so it was like this. It's just so weird that these people are just saying this stuff and they completely ignore the people that they're talking about in this case. And almost all the women on that set have talked about how they loved it. They loved the costumes, they loved everything, and the mobility it gave them. They worked with Michael Wilkinson, who was the costume designer, and they are the ones that came up with them so they could have better mobility. And it's just like they just ignore this shit, and I'm just like,
it drives me absolutely crazy when people say that Snyder is sexist. When you look at all of his films in terms of like how he portrays Lois Lane, for example. She's not a damsel in distress. She's a badass investigative reporter who can hold her own and isn't afraid of anything. And then Wonder Woman in every piece is like the center focus. She's in front of Batman and Superman when they're about to fight Doomsday. She is the center of the Trinity. And so many different things. And then this is the example that you have is the Amazonian costumes. Look, see, he's a male director and obviously he's sexist. You're like, what? Like, do you pay attention to this stuff? It's just freaking drives me nuts.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunate that we let it get to us. So
yeah.
Oh, okay. This thing's gone for an hour and a half. This thing's gone a long time. So
remember what was it? Was Man of Steel 2 hours? If I remember correctly.
2.5.
I remember right. The podcast was longer than the movie.
Right.
Right.
We literally broke down every scene. Okay, here's the next scene. Let's talk about this.
I remember I had notes. I was like, I'm ready, and I sat down.
Exactly.
And you guys were like, I know.
Good times. It was so it was great to have Nick back again. I hope now everybody has a face to that guy that they've said "fuck you" to on videos. So I know we have some OG listeners and stuff that'll come back to this.
Yeah, for sure.
There was people every once in a while that would come into our mentions or something like that, asking about you, Nick. Like, when will you ever bring Nick back on, or what did Nick think of this or that? And I'm like, So, I was like, what the hell? Let's get Nick on here. It just got announced. The last time we talked to Nick was about Justice League. So I thought it was quite fitting to bring you back for this. And then you didn't get HBO Max. So you kind of shit all over it. I hope you
ruined it. We were supposed to, we should have just set this up and been like, hey, Nick, just say that you're getting HBO Max.
Yeah,
and then
you love it.
There's the big payoff. Like, man.
You're like, 4 hours isn't enough. I need more. All that. We just prepped it.
Ethically, I can't lie like that. I'm sorry.
It's against your code.
It's against my rules. I have one rule.
Yeah, all wrong.
It's all good. Oh, and to answer the question, because I keep seeing it pop up in the chat, I don't drink coffee. So, just so everyone's aware. Yeah. This is all pure Nick.
Oh, man. No. Matt, I thought we were trying to end this episode, not get us started.
I'm just showing the guy I'm a fan.
We're ending it on a very excellent and careful note that Iron Man 3 is actually really well done. As Trevor Slattery.
Click on something else, please. There we go. Let's end it on that.
Whatever that is,
get them dollars. Exactly.
For anybody that may not know that are still here for this, tomorrow morning, Shane and I will be on Chris Wong Swenson's podcast with Dave the Film Junkie. So we were joining them a year in the making since the last time we did one. I think roughly after Snyder Con. Yep. I think it was. So
and I will be drinking lots of coffee because it's 9 a.m. our time, even earlier for Chris Wong.
He suggested it. Chris Wong is the one. Yeah. All I can think of, it must be like his children must still be asleep, and he's trying to do it at they're still asleep
at a quiet time. Yeah, because I'm like, okay, I will have my Comic Movie Marks mug and probably an entire pot that I'm just going to be pouring the entire time.
Well, there you go, some merchandise.
What do you want me to talk about it now?
No, I need Shane's faces on my money.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
money. Yeah. This is. I'll send you his info. Well, Nick, man, it's always a pleasure. Glad we were able to get you on. I love introducing someone else's perspective, specifically on our show.
Thanks, Jose. Don't give a shit about us. No, fuck that. Go to the one on Sunday.
On Sunday from the AyerCut.
Yeah, all right. Fuck us. Gotcha.
But yeah, Nick, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for bringing your honest perspective. It definitely was honest. Nope, not getting HBO Max.
Nope, not happening.
The pitch, the wind up, the pitch, and he watches it goes by.
No, I always love coming and chatting with you guys. So hopefully I can come on more. I think especially with. All right, that's fine.
Maybe 3 more years.
Yeah, and maybe in that time, DC will finally make a good movie.
All right.
How do I make it smaller? Oh God, no. There we go. All right, so guys. Who came through? How did he come through? You unmute him for a second?
What have you done?
There we go.
That's what I said.
Just release the Nick.
It's the Matt show.
Release the Nick, I guess.
All right, there we go. That's much better.
Fuck yeah.
I'm more important than everybody.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks again, guys, for joining us. Hopefully, this was somewhat. There we go. Hopefully, this was somewhat interesting to you guys. Nick, our MCU fanboy friend, giving you all the news you don't want to hear.
And that I'm always willing to give.
There we go.
Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Oh.
As I interrupt you.
In case I don't see you.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.